Thank you, Nicholas. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be talking about the tools platform. So as I was mentioned before, ELIXIR is a combination of platforms, 5 platforms, in fact, and a number of use cases. So at ELIXIR, we have a lot of data. We're seeing, human EGA and rare diseases and so on and so forth. But then we need tools to process those data and how to make a better use of tool to guarantee the reproducibility of science. So our view on the tools platform is a reference for bioinformatics communities of developers and end users. To do so, we have 7 working groups, 7 pillars, let's say that way. So 2 of them, the Work Package 1 and the Work Package 2, are already funded by ELIXIR Accelerate. That is a Horizon 2020 project. And it's about the Tools and Service Registry. Let me see. Oops, I cannot see the pointer there. And the Work Package 2, that is about benchmarking. And then we have other groups that have no specific funding, like software development, workflows and workbenches, the software best practices, the software development best practices, and the ELIXIR work group. So I will go all over them and give you an overview of what has been done. For instance, on the bio.tools, at the Work Package 1, the Tools and Service Registry, the bio.tools, the idea is to have a central place where different tools, services, workflows, and so on and so forth are registered. It's not only registered, but there is enough data, high-quality data about those services, about those tools. For instance, whether they have a license, they don't have a license, where you can find the repository, where in the future, where you can have a container or training material, and so on and so forth. So if you see, there are around 6,000 entries at the moment, with 460 contributors in bio.tools. So it's a growing community with different data, and the objective on that is to get to the 10,000 by the end of the year. But it's not only a number, it's a question of curating and ensuring the quality of the information that is there. So there are different challenges for bio.tools. Oops. There are different challenges for bio.tools, and that has to do with the usability and the connection of EDAN, that is an ontology to annotate tools and so on. And to tackle those challenges, bio.tool has a registry core that is at the moment formed by 28 people, the task manager 4, that is 90 people working on there, how to coordinate, how to prioritize, and then of course there is a part of the community feature requests and issues where people can register what they think bio.tool needs, right? And then there is a discussion there how to prioritize those needs and so on and so forth. So you can see that the bio.tool has been evolving over time, and there are new features like the entries can be shared using the profile. You can request edit rights and ownerships, subdomain, which is maybe is interesting feature of bio.tool, because at the end of the day, you can have a specific part of the registry associated to a specific domain, and there is also a lot of work in the search performance. What is coming is about an improved quality control of the entries, a new tool annotator, and new browsing features. So everything can be found in the links there, right? And of course, there is a lot of manpower to have a resource like bio.tool and to create that. For that end, there is a studentship scheme to have a student for a certain time curating different entries. And of course, there is a connection with other research infrastructures, like the bioimaging ontology, just to bring in whole communities into bio.tools. So if you want to know more, you have the mailing list, the documentation, and there is a Hangout meeting every month where you can go there and get to know what is going on and so on and so forth. But bio.tools per se have a value, but if you want to make it bigger or more valuable for the community, you need to connect bio.tools with other things. And I would say you need to connect bio.tools, so tools registers in bio.tools with training materials. You need to connect that with biocontainers, you need to connect it with benchmarking, you need to connect it with technical monitoring data, and so on. So we need the registry to go further, right? that is one of the things that we are doing at the work package too, the benchmarking and technical service monitoring. So on the left, you can see the architecture that we have already developed, that we are testing, right? So where we are capturing data from different communities. At the moment, we have data from Cameo, that is a structural proteins effort driven by a community. We have Quest for Orthodox data. We are incorporating data from text mining. And we're trying to incorporate data from very diverse communities. Why is that? Because every community has their own problems regarding formats, regarding metrics, regarding how they handle the challenges. So the idea is just to have all this in place so that we are able to provide a service, an agnostic service to many communities. But it's not only that. It's a question of how we visualize that data. Because you can have the most powerful system, but if you don't have way that end users and developers access to that data, you have nothing. So to do that, and actually I'm placing there a picture of the discussion that we have recently, how to visualize that. So, and then it's different. End users, they basically want to know what is the best tool for the problem. I would like to make an alignment of eukaryotic proteins. I don't really care whether this tool needs more memory or they need more time, or this tool is 0.5% better than the other one. I would like to have the best one for my problem. But of course, if you're a developer, you want to understand why you are 0.5 less accurate than your competitor. So those two views is what we are bringing here, and that is what we are developing at the moment. So that is already working, or the first prototype is already working. You can access there, where you have all the benchmarking data that we have already pulled in. And then there is a part of the tools monitoring data, where we are going to different tools and then querying whether they are online or not, and a number of metrics like number of publications, whether they have a license, and so on and so forth. There is a strong connection with bio.tools. So as I was saying, we need to somehow extend bio.tool capabilities and interact with each other. And I would like to use this time to introduce a specific workshop in Basel in this coming September, where we are tackling benchmarking initiative, where we plan to introduce what we have been doing in Open Events. That is the name that we decided to go for the work package to, and then get the feedback from the community. So we're bringing different speakers and saying, guys, this is what we captured during the last year for the benchmarking. What do you think? And then have a nice discussion on a panel and so on and so forth. I would like to invite you to come to this event. There are some specific slots for people, for extras and so on, to get to know in more detail what is about Open Events. So moving forward, I would say that we have benchmarking, we have the registry, but then we need also some guidelines about how to develop software. So the software development best practices is a way to establish, I would say, a number of recommendations that are adjusted with the first recommendations, but for software development. Those metrics or those recommendations, as Rafa likes to say, has been recently published in the F1000 channel. So there are 4 of them, and they are looking like whether the software has to be open source from day one, for instance. What about the licensing, whether there is an open license or not, and a number, well, you have all the recommendation there. And actually, we're working together with Rafa just to implement that in the open events. So as I was saying, we are 7 groups that needs a lot of coordination, but at the end, if we manage to do it, so we can have a nice product to sell, not to sell, but to offer to the community. So moving forward to the workflows at Workbenches, this group is led by Hervé, that I have seen there. And the idea here is just to develop a service that once you have registered a tool in bio.tools with information about EDAM, for instance, what is the input format, what is the output format, and so on and so forth, how I can create my own workflows, right? So, and to do that, there is a collaboration, a strong collaboration between EDAM, Hervé, of course, in this working group, and in the Galaxy. So how to make the connections across all the tools and so on. So how to create those workflows in a visual manner. So you can see there are a number of milestones and so on, and you can have more information about what has been developed in the Workbench side as a tool doc, and I would recommend you to use the coffee break if you want to know more and go to talk to Hervé. So everything is fine and so on, but I would like to say that we would like to also to guarantee data reproducibility. Of course, we can have databases, we can have tools, but we would like a system to guarantee data reproducibility, and we would like to have an easy system to deploy those containers, right? So we have, let's say, our scientific question. We develop the code because usually we think that we can do it better than others. Many times you have a solution and you say, okay, I can do it better. Then you package and then you deploy that solution. So the package part is important to have it in mind because you might have the problem that you develop something that is very specific to your system and you cannot move it anywhere, then limiting the possibility of that software to be used. So if you want something that is broadly adopted by different communities, you need a solution. And that solution is here by the use of bioconda and biocontainers, so those connections, that allow you to have software containers in different flavors. I would say Docker, Singularity, and so on and so forth. But it's going further. Of course, it's just using, for instance, the common workflow language and also using Galaxy to connect those containers and have workflows. At the end of the day, you can see that the story is somehow seen from different angles. So biocontainer is this working group where you can say, okay, I would like to have a container of my software, and there is a huge community behind it that allow you to generate those containers and then register them. Where do we register them? In bio.tools for the metadata of the tool and so on, and OpenEvents for the technical monitoring, with the Galaxy also, and so on and so forth. So I think it's important. And I would say there is an event in October, I don't know exactly the day, in France, where we will be 3 days discussing how to make bioinformatics more accessible and reproducible. I would like to use this opportunity also to introduce an implementation study. That is the way ELIXIR have to develop pilot projects about software deployment. So in this idea, what we would like to do is have a central infrastructure that allow us to have a containers infrastructure. So any software, any solution, somehow should be aligned with that. So we don't want to have 100 different solutions that at the end of the day, they don't work together. So we like to have certain resources that are central to all ELIXIR, because that facilitates the way, that allows to optimize resources, and so on and so forth. So we decided to go in this, for this implementation study, where we like to have this common infrastructure architecture that you have container independently of the technology that you use, like Docker, Singularity, and so on and so forth. And importantly, this implementation study will touch different platform and use cases in ELIXIR. So it's a transversal study that will be contribute to the work of others. So finally, I have 2 other groups to go. We have interoperability. So basically we have been talking about tools, workflows, and so on and so forth. But we're collaborating with the interoperability platform because we're looking forward for standards and for a guideline on how to make everything interoperable, how to guarantee that tools understand each other. So the idea is to create a specification framework that enable data scientists to describe tools and workflows to be easily interoperable. I'm thinking, for instance, the CWL as a case for doing that. And then if you have any doubts about the CWL, Michael Crusoe is around here, so he can give you more detail. So, of course, it's cool to have theories about how to do things and so on, but we need use cases. And in this case, the work package is about metagenomics, and the BioExcel Center of Excellence has been chosen as an example of how to implement the tools interoperability. Always well driven by use cases, because it's a way to demonstrate that what you are doing is useful. So sometimes happens that you have a very nice theoretical framework, you develop an architecture that no one else uses. So here you have an example of how we're connecting different technologies that we have at the tools platform, from ELIXIR, from bio.tools to Galaxy. Using either ontology, we have the use of open APIs, common workflow languages, and so on and so forth. So the idea is just to have that nice way to make this work. And finally, we have the Galaxy working, the Workflows Manager, which is in somehow trying to build up a European Galaxy community and somehow leading that. And I think ELIXIR, as a pan-European infrastructure, is the right place to do that effort. So we have people from the different technical coordinators, from training coordinators, and so on and so forth, who are somehow giving input the best way to Galaxy advance in the community. The idea is also to have a single voice to the core Galaxy team, because many times when you said, what are our priorities? If you have 100 people saying, this one, that one, blah, 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 it's super difficult to say, what is the voice, what is the communities behind? But if you have a single voice saying, well, the people at ELIXIR that represent many scientists in Europe agree that our priority for Galaxy is much stronger, send a much stronger message than having independent people working around. And of course, just to build a Galaxy community, we need to organize workshops, hackathons, and so on and so forth. So, I just skipped one part. So the integration of Galaxy into the ELIXIR platform is also a way to, as I was saying, for priorities, they have to access to sensitive data. There has been always a question about Galaxy. For instance, how we connect EGA, the European Genome and Phenome Archive, with Galaxy to run analysis or to rerun analysis, knowing that Galaxy is not so secure. So then we can say, as a list of priorities, we need to work on that. We need to increase that. So we need to look for ways to access to sensitive data. Of course, it's about also to sharing data, use of workflows, and so on and so forth. Just to conclude, well, as I was saying, training for users, but not only users, but developers and system administrators, because many times you say, Galaxy is a wonderful tool, and then when you go and talk to your system administrator, say, no way, because it's super difficult to install and so on and so forth. So they just to provide specific training to different communities to make an easy adoption of Galaxy as a solution. And of course, as I was saying, this Galaxy Workflows Manager is also intended to coordinate the contribution to the whole Galaxy platform. So that's all from the tools perspective, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Salva. Are there any questions for Salva?
Hi, in perspective of external developers, from a view of them, it's very difficult to get reproducibility of results in a term of time. Database versions changing, and the tools are changing, APIs are changing. How do you approach this problem, or what is your strategy to make the results in a 5 years reproducible, or it's not your goal?
How to make results in 5 years' time reproducible? So I will say we have if I understand correctly the question, we have the right infrastructure. It's a question of connecting. So at least from the, let's say, from the benchmarking side that we're always comparing and doing these kind of things, we want to use biocontainers as a technology, so we are sure that the version that has been benchmarked is the same that is the same version, and also we're capturing parameters, because sometimes it happens that even using the same program, if you don't have the right parameters, you are not able to reproduce data. So there are a number of solutions in the tools platform, and Galaxy is one of them to secure the workflows, they manage the workflows, and so on and so forth. And there are others, and one of them, at least coming from the Spanish perspective, is called NetFlow. That is basically intending to provide that solution, to guarantee data reproducibility in the long term. So as a part of the implementation study, what we're aiming is for the EGA, because at the moment you submit data at the EGA and you have the metadata, where this data is coming from, and so on and so forth. We would like to extend the submission process to register how that data has been processed and to provide identifiers of the containers that have been used, the software that has been used to process that data. So in the long term, you can go back and say, here is the data, here is the container that has been used to process that data, and then I hope, or I expect, I would say, from the technological point of view to reproduce the same results.
Thank you.
So I have one for you.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, Salva. So you mentioned briefly some of the benchmarking communities that you've been working with. Can you say something about the next step with these communities like Cameo and
So at the moment, what we are doing is importing all the data that they have, and we are registering the metrics. And then we are working in, I would say, in parallel in 3 directions. One direction is bringing in more communities. So there is a list of communities. We have like 5 or 6 that we have been talking about, but we don't have data yet. So the second one is, rather than having the number that represent a metric, let's say I have my gold standard, and then I have the people compute, they process the input data, they produce the output, and then they compare that. So our idea is just to be able to compute those metrics in open events. So basically, you have the data, you submit your results, and then we make the computation. And then, of course, it's important the visualization. We want to make sure that we offer the communities, developers, and also end users the possibilities to visualize data. So it's important because we can go the whole way to integrate different communities, have all the data inside and so on, but if we don't provide a way for them to visualize data and to have the discussions, that will be difficult to maintain in the long term.
No more questions? Then thank you very much, Salva.
Thank you.